You're attending recording class. Okay. Good afternoon. So, what we have discussed in the previous class? Ashu. Administrative reforms within the company. So, in that, what we have discussed? Starting from Regulating Act 1773, Amending Act of 1781, Act of Pitt India Act 1784, Act of 1786, and then series of charters 1793, 1813, 1833, and 1853. So, those were the administrative reforms under company. Again, let's get back to dual government. What is this dual government? We have to write now. So 1833 and 1853. We'll do that. Yeah, yaad hai. Sure. Dual government. No. Where we have studied dual government? Dual government of Bengal. So particularly after Treaty of Allahabad, 1765. In Bengal, dual government was established, which includes the Diwani rights plus Nizamat rights, isn't it? Which we have already discussed about that. So here, now we'll see the economic. So we have seen administrative changes. Now we'll see the economic changes under British rule. So again, why I have written dual government? Because those were also started from the time of this period only, dual government period, that is from 1765. Why 1760? Why it started in 1765 only? Because the British got secured Diwani rights from Mughal emperor, Diwani rights of Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa. So they got Diwani rights of Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa. Diwani rights means the right to collect revenue. So Diwani rights means right to collect revenue from Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa. So the company have secured it from Mughal emperor. Now, so obviously with the beginning of dual government, with the beginning of Diwani rights in Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa, now company got the whole right to collect the revenue from these regions. So the point is how they will collect, because so far they have no experience of revenue collection in India. It is the first time, right? So for the first time they were about to collect revenue. So what is the system that was established by them from 1765? Permanent settlement started in 1793. So फिर 1765 में क्या हुआ था? See, actually, we can classify this phase into different periods actually. From 1765 to 72, one period, and from 1772 to actually 5-year settlement system, actually 77, but continued later also, which became annual system later on. So these are the two periods. So a revenue system in this period and revenue system in this period. And then after, as she mentioned, what was introduced? Permanent Settlement Act in 1790s. So what system was implemented by the British in this period for revenue collection, and what system in this period, and what system under Permanent Settlement Act? So first, the time period from 1765 to 72. That is actually coincided with which period? Dual government. Because 1773 se leke dual government was abolition. So what was the revenue system that was set up by British in India in this period? At least tell me, what was the setup before British revenue system in India? Before? Can be Mughals, it can be Delhi Sultanate, it can be even before that. So entire ancient and medieval wala. At least tell me medieval. Dadars collected revenue under Mughals time or Delhi Sultanate? Yes. Then Jamindars. So if we talk about a period recent to this period, so we have Jamindars, right? Who are these Jamindars? Who are they? See, we have Zamindars and peasants. And then we have state. You got it? So these are the three players, right? So Zamindars acted as middlemen, and Zamindars used to collect revenue from peasants. But here, that means before British era, does these peasants have any kind of right? Did they enjoy any rights? Did they? No, not at all. Actually, they do have some rights. Actually, peasants do have some rights. So that's why, especially if we talk about medieval period or even before that late ancient period, we have proper land assessment, land measurement, and tax assessment. We have discussed this many number of times. Whether you take under Cholas, whether you take under later Khilji's time period, later under Mughals time period, even during the time of Sur Empire, what was done? The land was properly measured and the tax was assessed. And on the basis of that land measurement and tax assessment, tax was fixed, and that used to be collected from peasants. So which actually ranged between 1/6 to 1/3 of the produce. So 1/6 is lowest, 1/3 is the highest. Some occasions they collected 1/2 also, but that is very rare. But in general, the tax ranged between 1/6 to 1/3. So here in this case, during this period, peasants were also protected, because if peasants got affected, ultimately what will happen? Agriculture gets affected. So obviously, ultimately, state revenues gets affected. So whether in the ancient period or medieval, and at the same time, if there are some certain zamindars between, so they used to take care of, they used to have some rights, and they used to take care of the development of agriculture under the state. You got it? But what happened? Everything got changed from the times of 1765, because as soon as they secured the Devani rights of Bengal and Bihar and Orissa, so now this entire part became an estate of British. Entire part became an estate of British. So ultimately, what's their motive? Central motive: grab as much as revenue from this estate. That is the central motive, right? Because the company, what's the motive of the company? They wanted to recover as much as money from this region to compensate their losses in the wars, because they have continuously involved in series of wars right from beginning of Battle of Plassey. Even if we go before that, Carnatic Wars. So Carnatic Wars, Battle of Plassey, Battle of Buxar, then Anglo-Mysore Wars, then Anglo-Maratha Wars, right? So that's why they just seen this as a what we can say, a golden sack, which they can extract as much as possible. But the problem is they have no experience of revenue collection, because company is just, so far the company is a trading company which have no prior experience of revenue collection, but all of a sudden they got the right to collect revenue. So in this phase, what they have done, they have relied on zamindars only. That means the early rights of zamindars, which were continued to recognize, and zamindars continued as revenue collectors. So these zamindars acted as revenue collectors, but these will be under the supervision of company officials. They are under the supervision of company officials. So, and at the bottom we have peasants. Got it? So here the company used to put pressure on zamindars, and zamindars used to put pressure on peasants. If company exploits zamindars, zamindars exploits peasants. So ultimate stress is on peasants. And here, since company only supervises zamindars, company only supervises zamindars and put pressure on zamindars to collect as much as revenue, and the revenue is not properly fixed or assessed, not properly assessed and not properly fixed. So obviously that leads to what? A kind of exploitation. So, and obviously when there is no responsibility, does responsibility was taken by company officials here? Yes or no? No, responsibility was not taken by them. I told you already during the time of discussion of dual government, we have discussed about the demerits of dual government. The company did not take the responsibility. Company only enjoyed the power, whereas responsibility was left with Nawab. So same thing happened here. Same thing, because the company used to put pressure on zamindars, who used to put pressure on peasants. Ultimately, peasants got affected. So that led to destruction of agriculture. So that's why we have 1770, one of the deadliest famines of Bengal, where nearly 1/3 of the population got died. So, and when this happened, when this agriculture got destroyed, these company officials put all the blame on whom? Nawab. They put the blame on Nawab. As I already told you, that Nawab was left with a mere amount of 50 lakhs annually only, which is not enough for maintenance of administration nor development of agriculture. So irrigation took a back seat. Agriculture obviously ultimately got distracted, because one side there is no efforts towards the development of land, and on the other side peasants are exploited by the revenue collectors. So, and company officials have just a mere visitors, like they just supervised it without any effort taken by them. So because they have no prior experience, and also they have a motive of extracting as much as revenues. So ultimately this led to destruction of agriculture. So that's why what happened in 1772, this system was abolished. The system was abolished, and Warren Hastings decided to bring some reforms. So what are those reforms? So that starts from 1772. What is the system that was introduced by Warren Hastings here? No, that was very much later. No. Ishadari system or revenue farming system or annual leasing system. So what is the system? What is the system? See, actually what happened here, under the system, Warren Hastings here also he relied on zamindars only, but these zamindars were chosen actually. So here let us say there is a land and this land generates a certain amount of revenue annually. So now this revenue must be collected by someone, right? Where company officials acts as in charge, not just supervision, they act as in charge. So now this revenue collection rights were given to zamindars through auctioning process. Okay, so that means revenue collection was given to whom? The highest bidder. So the highest bidder through auctioning process. Okay, so this system is called as the revenue farming system or annual lease system. Is that means the revenue rights were given to the highest bidder. So who becomes the revenue collector, which was over whom the company acts as in charge or company officials acts as in charge. Okay, and now these revenue collectors used to take 10% on the total amount of revenue collected. So what is this system? Revenue farming system, under which the right of revenue collection was given to zamindars through auctioning process, where the right was given to highest bidder, who used to collect the revenue from peasants annually and who retains 10% of the revenue. Okay, so 10% of the revenue goes to the zamindar, the revenue collector. Rest of the amount goes to the company treasury. So this system was introduced by. So initially it started as a 5-year settlement. Later it became annual settlement. So from 1772 to 77, it was 5-year settlement. That means auctioning was given to bidders for 5 years, but later they changed it and given on annual basis. So that's why we also call it as annual leasing system. Okay. So in the second phase, this annual lease system, revenue farming system, and later annual lease system was introduced by whom? Warren Hastings. Okay, but in this also there are certain problems. So what are the problems? Here also there is no effort towards development of agriculture. No effort towards development of land productivity. Again, so here also there is no fixed revenue. No fixed revenue. So ultimately, revenue collector wants as much as he wants to extract from the peasants, and the company only wanted to ensure that they get the certain amount what they have fixed. So obviously these highest bid, these jamindars used to exploit the peasants, because if they collect more, they get more out of this 10%. Are you getting me? That means again ultimately the burden goes to bottom, that is peasants. So peasants got exploited. So that's why this system also proved to, and at the same time another thing is like these jamindars, when they used to participate in auctioning process, they used to corrupt the officials to get the bid. Right? So in that way, they secured the zamindarship. So ultimately, this system also proved to be a failure. So that's why there comes orders from the London, and as well as different proposals from different uh, company officials at that time. So finally, they decided to devise a permanent settlement system. So that is nothing but Permanent Settlement Act or Zamindari. Right. See, basically, if you talk about British revenue systems, land revenue systems, we have how many? Three. What are they? Permanent settlement system, Rayatwari system, and Mahalwari system. So, permanent settlement system was introduced in or implemented in Bengal, Bihar, Orissa. It was implemented in Bengal, Bihar, Orissa, Varanasi, and northern Madras, that is Carnatic region. Rayatwari settlement, introduced in Bombay, Madras, central provinces, United provinces, and some areas like Coorg. Mahalwari system, Mahalwari, Punjab, that is northwestern frontier provinces, northeast. Okay. So if we talk about these three systems, which was the highest in terms of area? Permanent Settlement Act was implemented in 19%, Rayatwari 51%, and Mahalwari system in 30% of the area under British. So permanent settlement system was implemented in 19% of the area. Rayatwari system was implemented in 51% of the area. Mahalwari system was implemented in 30% of the area. Okay. So now let us see what is this permanent settlement system. What is this? Because earlier, what is the major issue? The revenue was not fixed. So which led to ambiguities in revenue collection, and that resulted in exploitation of peasants. So here what they have done, they have fixed the revenue, and that too permanently, in perpetuity. So the revenue was fixed or made permanent. Okay. And now what was this, what is this system, how it worked, how this system worked? So zamindars will collect the revenue. Actually here in these cases, were the zamindars recognized as owners of land? Yes or no? No. Whereas here, does zamindars were recognized as owners of land in Permanent Settlement Act? Yes. How? Because in earlier case, zamindars were exploited and zamindars were removed at the will of the company officials. So zamindars also suffered. So who in turn exploited the peasants to secure their position. So there is no much protection to zamindars as the earlier systems. But now zamindars have been given ownership rights, so that zamindars would be protected. Because ultimately what the company wants revenue. Which revenue? A stable revenue without any fluctuations. The company wants what? A stable supply of revenue to the treasury. So here zamindars were recognized as owners of the land. That means they were given ownership rights. They were given ownership rights. So ownership rights means they can at any time they can sell, transfer, mortgage the land. You can sell, transfer, or mortgage the land. So now what is the responsibility of this zamindar? Zamindar's responsibility is to collect the revenue. And one more thing here, these ownership rights are also hereditary. These are also hereditary in nature, right? And now he is responsible for collecting revenue. He is responsible for collecting revenue. So, and revenue was fixed, right? Suppose according to James Grant or John Shore, it was like 45% used to go to company, 15% goes to zamindar, and 40% left with peasant. Good. So a revenue was fixed and made permanent. So whether it is fixed on the basis of scientific measurement and assessment of land, that was different case. And that did not happen. They just randomly fixed without any proper scientific assessment. But whether it is scientific or unscientific, it was fixed, which is not even in the case of earlier. So now it was fixed. That means for this land, the British secured that, okay, this much of revenue must be generated. And now it is the responsibility of zamindar to collect that. It is the responsibility of zamindar to ensure the collection of amount in full. So here, so let us say the share between zamindar and the company. So out of the revenue collected, how much goes to company and how much goes to the zamindar? Actually, they have divided into 11 parts. So 1/11 goes to zamindar and 10/11 goes to company. That means out of the collected revenue means here, what's the collected revenue? 60%. Suppose if this is the case, so 60% of produce is the collected revenue, out of which 1/11 goes to zamindar, 10/11 goes to the company. So this is the Zamindar's commission. And there is also another provision, like Zamindar can also collect even more than that. And any excess amount can be retained by Zamindar. For suppose, let us say company fixed revenue rate as 50%. The company wants what? This 50%. Zamindar can collect extra 5% also. May goes to 55 also. Because it was not fixed, no? Only the British want this much. The British want to ensure that this must be collected. Whether you collect more or not, that doesn't matter for us. So sometimes Zamindars collected even more. And the Zamindars were allowed to retain the additional amount. Whatever extra you collect, you keep it with you. What we want, whatever it is, fixed and made permanent. You got it? So, in some cases, Zamindars collected even more and retained the additional amount. So, for suppose, so here I have taken example of 50% now. For suppose if Zamindar failed to collect this, what will happen? If Zamindar failed to collect this amount also, even this amount was not collected in full, what will happen? I told you, no? He can be transferred. That means this land can be removed from one Zamindar and transferred to some other Zamindar. So, if Zamindar fails to collect amount in full, so his land would be confiscated. Confiscated and transferred to new Zamindar. You got it? And not only that, but there is also a clause which we call it as sunset clause. Under Permanent Settlement Act, there is also a sunset clause. What is this sunset clause? No, you're right actually, but they will fix a date. By the sunset of that day, the Jamindars have to submit the accounts to the company. Whether peasants paid or not, British have nothing. Sunset of the fixed date, then his land would be confiscated and transferred to new Zamindar. So this is the permanent settlement system which was implemented in Bengal, Bihar, Orissa, Varanasi, and northern district of Madras. Okay. So now, did you understand what is permanent settlement? Now tell me, what are the merits of this? What are the merits of permanent settlement system? कुछ merits है क्या या नहीं? What are the advantages? Amit na? Amit. No advantage. So, like, is there no advantage from the earlier times of revenue farming system? और सपोज रेवेन्यू फार्मिंग सिस्टम है, परमानेंट सेटलमेंट सिस्टम है, सो दोनों में फर्क नहीं है. What's that? What's the advantage? How can it reduces the exploitation of peasants? Hmm. Okay, okay. In that case, slightly reduce the, but still they continue to exploit actually in some cases. And revenue was fixed now. Revenue was fixed. Earlier, there is no specific amount that goes to the company. There used to be fluctuations. But here, under the system, there is a constant supply of revenue to the company so that the company can use it for administrative expenses. And at least tell me demerits, drawbacks. Zamindar? Okay. If you don't submit the account in full, obviously zamindar will be removed, no? कौन चेक करना रहा है? नहीं, वो नहीं है. First and foremost thing, are peasants protected in this? Peasants protected? No. So is it a drawback or not? And second thing, was the fixed amount was scientific in nature? Was it fixed after scientific assessment, or it was fixed abruptly? Third, was there any effort from either the side of zamindar or from the side of company to improve the land productivity? To some extent, there is an improvement actually as compared to, but if we see overall, is there any improvement? No, right? And fourth, does this zamindar have permanent rights or ownership rights over the land? No, it depends on his revenue collection capabilities. Fifth, and was this amount very high or low? The fixed revenue amount, the tax rate was very high. Isn't it high? Sometimes it went up to 60%. Isn't it high? Where peasant is left, suppose if peasant have produced 100 bags of rice, how much he have to pay as tax? 60 bags of rice. So what was left with him? Just 40% of bags, which he have to feed his family and again produce the next crop. So that means ultimately burden is more on peasant. Got it? So these are various drawbacks of permanent settlement. Got it? So that's why it was implemented only in few areas actually, only 19% of the total area of the country, whereas right-wise system is in 51%. So permanent settlement was in only 19% of the area. So it was like, that's why it was criticized, though it was praised by few, but it was criticized by many, including the English officials. Got it? So what you're saying, you have to write notes for previous one, no? Write that. Starter Act 1833. Online students, continue the notes from Friday's class. Put the heading Charter Act 1833. Write down. The company's role was extended for for another 20 years. Was extended for another 20 years. The company's military and revenue matters in the whole of India. In the whole of India. Next, the Governor General was given the power to control superintendent 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 and direct the civil and military affairs of the company. Civil and military affairs of the company. The president of board of control now became the Minister for Indian Affairs. Became the Minister for Indian Affairs. Next, the Governor General. The Governor General was given exclusive legislative powers. Exclusive legislative powers for whole of India. Okay. Next, all the laws made in India came to be called as acts. Next, this act recommended for setup of Indian Law Commission. Indian Law Commission. Just extension of that. In 1833, first law commission in 1833, first law commission was set up with Lord Macaulay as its chairman. This act tried to introduce an open competitive examination for civil services. Open competitive examination for civil services, but was opposed by Court of Directors. Okay. Last one, Charter Act 1853. Okay. The company's role was renewed without any specific time period. Okay. Next, the salaries of members of board of control comma the secretary and other officers were fixed by British government, and other officers were fixed by British government. Which would be paid by, sorry, who would be paid by company. Okay. Next, the strength of court of directors. The strength of court of directors was reduced from 24 to 18. Okay. This act separated executive and legislative functions of the company This act separated executive and legislative functions of the company. Functions of the company. Full stop. It created a new legislative body new legislative body which acted as mini parliament. Which acted as mini parliament. Okay. Which actually 6 members at that time. Strength of this Indian legislative. So this came to be called as Indian Legislative Council. To stop, this came to be called as Indian Legislative Council. Okay. Last point. This act introduced open competitive examination for civil services. Open competitive examination for civil services. So, which means Indians were also allowed to covenanted civil services. Okay. So, this is about 1853 Charter Act, which is the last because in 1858 company was dissolved and power was transferred to Crown. Okay. So, we will write tomorrow the rest of the part. Okay, Rohisha, sure. वो भी हम पैरेलल डिस्कस करेंगे कुछ टॉपिक्स में and bring a separate notes for mapping also. Okay? And you purchase one. You have the book, Vinith? Yes, sir. Mapping book hai? What about you? Practice mapping book आता है ना market में. So just purchase that. है क्या? Just show them so that they can purchase. नहीं. So purchase one. पुराना मैपिंग वाला फोटो भेजना. ये बुक की मैपिंग के साथ 1-2 फोटोज. So purchase that book along with a separate notes for mapping. We'll write the description of sites also. So we'll start that also. हाँ. This weekend we'll have test on modern India. Whatever the syllabus we complete till Thursday. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.